Good morning, my dear students. A very warm welcome to today's biology class. We have already completed the previous chapter, that is how do organisms reproduce. And today we are going to begin a new chapter, that is heredity and evolution. Now let us see what are we going to cover in this chapter. So in this chapter we are going to cover the following topics, that is heredity, Mendel's contribution, Mendel's laws of inheritance of traits, and sex determination. Now, when you think about heredity, what is the first thing which comes to your mind? You might have spoken things like you have inherited your eye color from your father, you had inherited your hair color from your mother. And also you might have heard people telling that you look similar to your mother or you look similar to your father. So why do you look similar to your parents? This is what we are going to discuss in this chapter. In the previous chapter, we had discussed about the mode of reproduction in living organisms. So there are two modes of reproduction, that is sexual reproduction and asexual reproduction. In asexual reproduction, only one parent is involved. But in sexual reproduction, two parents are involved. So when you inherit the characteristic from your parents, you had inherited the characteristic of both the parents, and that is the reason why some of your features look like your father and some of your features look like your mother. So we are going to learn that how does the inheritance of characteristics takes place, and it takes place both in case of asexual reproduction and sexual reproduction, and that is the reason why we look similar but we do not look identical, because there is a little bit of difference, there is a little bit of variation. When the characteristics are being inherited from the parents to the offspring, there is a little bit of variation, and that is the reason why we do not look identical to our parents but we look similar to our parents. So what is heredity? Heredity is defined as the transmission of characteristic or traits from parents to the offspring. Now you can see in the picture that human have characteristics like it has 2 ears, it has 2 eyes, 1 nose, yes, and then 2 hands, yes, 10 fingers, 5 in each hand, yes. So these are the traits of a human. Now if you look at the picture here, you will find that the children look similar to their parents but they are not identical. Fine. So why is it so? Why do offsprings look similar to the parents? It is due to the inheritance of the traits or characteristics from the parents. So this is known as heredity. Now the process of inheritance of the characteristic is done by genes which define the characters of organism. And the study of heredity and variation is huge. It is a big concept. So it is studied in a different branch called genetics. So the study of heredity and variation is known as genetics. Now what is the difference between heredity and inheritance? We had been talking about heredity and inheritance, that heredity is the transmission of the characteristics from parents to the offsprings, and the offsprings inherit the characters from the parents. So what is the difference between heredity and inheritance? Heredity is the transmission of genetic characters from parents to offspring and is often referred to as genetics. Inheritance depicts the pathway, means how it is transmitted. Yes, so inheritance depicts the pathway of the genetic traits and its expression from one to another generation. So how the characteristics are passing from the parents to the offspring, what is the pathway, and how it is being expressed in the offspring from one generation to another is inheritance. Now if you look at the pictures, Here you will see that the baby koala looks similar to its parents, and the baby elephant and the baby giraffe also look similar to its parents, but they do not look identical. They are little bit different. Yes, similarities are there, but still there are some differences. Similarly, when reproduction takes place by asexual mode also, there is a little bit of variation which is taking place. Of course, the variation is more in sexual reproduction, but it is less in asexual reproduction, but there will be a little bit of variation. Now, what is variation? Variation is the difference in characteristics of parents and offspring. So there are similar characteristics, but still there are some difference, for which we are able to differentiate between the parent and the offspring. Yes, so there are two types of variation. One is somatic variation and another is gametic variation. What is somatic variation? Somatic variation occurs in the somatic cells of the body. They are not inherited or transmitted in the next generation. So they are also known as acquired traits. So when there is no change in the germ cell or the gametes, then the characteristics are not inherited from the parents to the offspring. Yes, so that means the variation has taken place in the somatic cells, not in the germ cell. But on the other hand, gametic variation occurs in the germ cell of the body, and when there is variation or difference in the germ cell or the sex cells, they are inherited to the next generation. So they are called inherited traits. Yes, so the traits which are inherited from the parents to the offspring is called inherited traits, and the ones which are not inherited from parents but the organism has acquired during its lifetime is called acquired traits. Now let us look at the difference between the acquired and the inherited traits. So whatever traits or characteristic an individual acquire in a lifetime due to internal vital force, effect of the environment, new needs, use and disuse of organs are called acquired traits, and this will not be inherited to the next generation. But on the other hand, inherited traits are the traits or characters of an organism which is caused by a change in its genes or DNA, and it is called inherited traits. So the cause of the change is due to inaccuracies in DNA copying. So in the previous chapter already we had discussed that there are inaccuracy or error in the DNA copying. Yes, so due to that variation arises. So those characteristic or traits, when it is passed on to the offspring, is called inherited traits. So acquired traits, the characteristics are restricted to the somatic cells only, but the inherited traits is coded in genes of the chromosome. The acquired traits of an organism cannot be passed on to its future generation. For example, strong muscles of a wrestler, decrease in weight due to starvation, cut tail of a mouse. So all these are traits which has been acquired by the organism in its lifetime. So as a result, change has taken place in the somatic cells, not in the germ cell. So as a result, it will not be inherited to the offspring. But on the other hand, the inherited traits of an organism are passed on to its future generation. For example, color blindness, then hemophilia, red color of beetles. So these are changes which has taken place in the germ cell of the living organism. So these characteristics will be inherited to the offspring. Now look at this picture. If you look at this picture, you'll find that the son has inherited both the characters of the parents, that is from the father and also from the mother. But only one characteristic is being shown. That means either the father's characteristic or the mother's characteristic is expressed. Say for example, the boy's eye is similar to the father. Yes, but the hair color is similar to mother. Similarly, the son's ear is similar to the father, but the height is similar to the mother. That means characteristics are inherited from both the parents, but when it is expressed in the body of the offspring, only one characteristic will be expressed. That means either of the one character of the parents, that is either the father's characteristic will be expressed or the mother's characteristic will be expressed. So now look at these characteristics. Yes, so here is a list of characteristics which is found in human. Like here, the chin is cleft, but no cleft is there. Yes, so here in the chin you'll find a small cleft, but on the other hand, yes, there is no cleft. That means the chin may have a cleft or it may not have. Similarly, here the way the hair is growing, yes, is different. And then there are dimples on the cheeks of some people and there are no dimples in few people. Then the hair may be brown, black, the color of the hair is different. The eye color is also different in different people. Yes, so there are many characteristics which are present in human body which are not similar with all other people. Now, Gregor Johann Mendel was the first person to find out how traits gets inherited. So he started his work on Pisum sativum, garden pea. He is known as the father of genetics. He had chosen 7 pairs of contrasting characters. Mendel conducted a series of experiments in which he crossed the pollinated plants to study one characteristic at a time. So here you can see the list of the 7 chosen contrasting characters. Yes, so the seeds may be yellow or green in color. The flowers may be white or violet in color. The pod may be full or constricted. The pod may be yellow or green in color. The stem may be long or short. So in this way, he took 7 contrasting characteristic of pea and then he started his work. And after he completed his work, yes, he gave his law, which is known as Mendel's law of inheritance of traits. But why did he choose pea plant? The reason for choosing garden pea for experiment was that the garden pea had short life cycle. A large number of seeds are produced. The pea plant self-pollinated and several contrasting characteristics could be found in pea plant. After experimenting on pea plant, Mendel gave 3 laws of inheritance of traits, and the 3 laws are law of dominance, law of segregation and law of independent assortment. So we will be discussing about these 3 laws in detail and also about the experiment carried out by Mendel in the next class. So for today, this is all. Now let us summarize what we have learned in today's class. Heredity is defined as transmission of characteristics from parents to offsprings. The study of heredity and variation is known as genetics. There are 2 types of variation, somatic variation and gametic variation. Variation is the basis of the heredity and evolution and increases the chances of the survival of the organism according to the changing environment. The most common cause of variation are mutation, recombination and random mating. Gregor Johann Mendel started his work on Pisum sativum, garden pea. He is known as father of genetics. Mendel gave 3 laws: law of dominance, law of segregation and law of independent assortment. So this is all for today's class. Thank you and have a great day.